Owner-operators are independent employers and make their own policies regarding employment-related matters at their restaurant. Owner-operators alone are responsible for all employment matters in their restaurant, including all decisions regarding the terms and conditions of employment, such as hiring, firing, discipline, supervision, staffing, and scheduling. Neither McDonald's Corporation nor McDonald's USA controls employment matters at restaurants owned and operated by franchisees. The materials in this course, including the policy discussed throughout, are offered to owner-operators as an optional resource. Because owner-operators are independent employers who make their own employment policies and decisions, owner-operators may choose to use part, all, or none of the course materials in operating their own McDonald's restaurant. Owner-operators also retain the right to create their own materials and reject the materials contained in this resource. Since you work for an owner-operator organization, please check with your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator to determine whether and which of these materials apply to your organization. Although this course may contain certain references to owner-operators, these references are for demonstrative purposes only and are incorporated in an effort to assist owner-operators in case they choose to implement any portion of this course within their individual organizations. While you must complete the entire course, you may exit at any time. When you return to complete the course, it may automatically. Welcome to building a safe, respectful, and inclusive workplace. Your restaurant should be a fun, safe, and great place to work, earn money, and grow. Make sure you have reviewed your restaurant's policy on discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. This course is based upon the template policy provided to your owner-operator as an optional resource. The template policy is referred to as the policy throughout this course. The language of the policy is just one example of policy language that is appropriate and consistent with information that has been made publicly available by the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission to assist employers generally in their compliance and respectful workplace endeavors. If you have any questions or concerns regarding your restaurant's policy on discrimination, harassment, and retaliation, and/or anything discussed in this course, you should speak to your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator as soon as possible. It is important to know that conduct may not violate the law, but may still violate your restaurant's policy against harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. While definitions of harassment, discrimination, and retaliation vary from state to state, certain behaviors are never acceptable at your restaurant. This remains true even if the conduct only offends some people and not others. Throughout the course, we will be answering 8 key policy questions. What conduct does the policy prohibit? What characteristics of individuals does the policy protect? Where does the policy apply? Who does the policy apply to? How do you report inappropriate conduct? What are the expectations regarding investigations and confidentiality? What does the policy say about retaliation? What are the consequences for violating the policy? Remember, if you would like to review your restaurant's policy, simply contact your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator, such as an HR representative. Why is it important to create a safe, respectful, inclusive workplace? The backbone of the McDonald's brand is a commitment to a set of core values. When the company and owner-operators live these values every day and use them to make decisions, together we define McDonald's as a brand that restaurant employees and customers can trust. You have a role too. By upholding McDonald's brand values, you can help build a respectful culture in your restaurant, one that is free from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. McDonald's brand values are. Select each icon to learn more. Serve. We put our customers and our people first. We value the people who work for and with us and the customers who we serve above all else. Inclusion. We open our doors to everyone. We value diverse perspectives, and we want to create a welcoming and supportive environment for all. Integrity. We do the right thing. We prioritize safety and well-being and believe that everyone working at a McDonald's brand restaurant is entitled to work in an environment free from harassment, violence, and discrimination. Community. We are good neighbors. We give back to our local communities and think globally to build a better future. Family. We get better together. We believe that we all have a role to play in creating a safe, respectful, diverse, and inclusive workplace. Did you know the policy covers more than sexual harassment or misconduct? The policy generally prohibits two types of harassment: quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Select the buttons below for definitions of quid pro quo and hostile work environment. Quid pro quo is a Latin phrase meaning something for something, or this for that. This type of misconduct occurs when a person with authority, such as a manager or supervisor, promises, denies, or threatens a job benefit, or makes a job decision in exchange for something of a sexual nature. The person with authority could be a manager or supervisor, and the harasser may be male or female. This type of misconduct can also involve persons of the same sex or gender. Hostile work environment harassment is conduct that unreasonably interferes with an individual's work or creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive working environment. Put another way, it involves conduct that is reasonably perceived as offensive or unwelcome, even if the conduct was not intended to be offensive. Let's be perfectly clear. It is never, ever okay to sexually assault anyone. It is never, ever okay to sexually harass anyone. It is never, ever okay to take part in quid pro quo misconduct or create a hostile work environment. Such behavior always violates the policy, is against the law, and does incredible damage to everyone involved. Please choose whether the following sexually inappropriate conduct may be quid pro quo or hostile work environment conduct. Match each statement to the correct conduct. Correct. It does not matter what gender the person with authority is or what gender the victim is for quid pro quo misconduct to apply. It is not just about sex, but about any sexual activity or favor, from a date to a kiss to even a hug. A hostile work environment can be created by anyone and does not have to be about sex. It can touch upon other subjects that are offensive and unwelcome. A hostile work environment can be created not just by words and actions, but by images as well. Before moving on, please select the policy icon to answer the critical question of what conduct the policy prohibits. Sexual harassment includes unwelcome advances or flirtations, requests for sexual favors, and other conduct based on sex, where agreeing to the conduct becomes a condition of employment, or the conduct is used as the basis for an employment decision, or the conduct creates an intimidating, hostile, or offensive work environment. Even if this conduct is not being used as a basis for an employment decision, it may still be unwelcome. Unwelcome sexual conduct is inappropriate and never acceptable at McDonald's. Examples of inappropriate behavior include touching any employee in a sexual manner, making comments about a person's body, intentionally brushing up against another person, staring at a person in a way that makes them feel uncomfortable, sharing pictures, jokes, cartoons, or any materials of a sexual nature. This policy also covers more severe misconduct, such as sexual assault. Please note that this is not a complete list, as there may be other conduct that would not be appropriate. It is important to remember the following. The victim, as well as the harasser, may be of any gender. The harasser can be the victim's supervisor, an agent of the employer, a supervisor in another area, a coworker, or a non-employee. The victim does not have to be the person harassed and could be anyone affected by the offensive conduct. Unlawful sexual harassment may occur without economic injury to or discharge of the victim. Harassment on the basis of sex is a violation of federal law as well. Section 703 of Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act defines how and when sexual harassment can occur. Check the box to acknowledge you have read the contents of this page to continue with the course. We will continue to focus on examples of conduct that can violate the policy even if you never intended the conduct to be offensive or unwelcome, as the following scene between two crew members illustrates.
Coming through. Busy night, huh? Can't wait to get out of here and meet the others at the bar. You coming?
I don't think so. I'm kind of tired. I'll probably just stay in.
Oh, come on. Drinks are on me. How can you say no to that?
Thanks, but I'm really not up for it.
Honestly, I think you're so cute, and I've been wanting to ask you out for weeks. I think you know how I feel, right? You look especially cute today. I really like your haircut. What, you're just gonna leave me hanging here?
Sorry,
What? I'm not your type? It's cool. Whatever.
I'm sorry. Look, my boyfriend's waiting for me at home.
Oh my god. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. My gaydar's usually pretty good.
No problem.
Wait, you're not just saying that to let me down easy.
No.
You know, you might want to be a little bit more upfront about that. You don't want to lead people on.
I haven't led anyone on.
Don't worry. I'll make sure none of the other girls bother you.
No, I'd prefer you not say, Lena! Lena!
Select the Next button. Select the plus sign icons to learn more. Did Lena intend to offend Tom? That's not what matters. What matters is if the person experiencing the conduct perceives that it is offensive or unwelcome. What matters is what Tom felt and thought. No matter how innocent or non-threatening you believe your conduct, your intent behind the conduct does not protect you from a possible policy violation. Your intent does not outweigh the consequences of your actions. Always consider how your actions or comments might be interpreted by someone else. The policy prohibits offensive and unwelcome conduct based on sex. But let's be clear, it also prohibits offensive and unwelcome conduct based on sexual orientation. Select the tablet to learn more. Discussing and gossiping about a coworker's sexual orientation is likely a violation of the policy. Respect everyone's sexual orientation. Please select the policy icon to read who the policy applies to. The template policy we have been discussing throughout this course applies to all employees, on restaurant property or off-site with other employees, contractors, or vendors. In addition, the policy states that we do not tolerate harassment of employees by non-employees, for example, interns, temporary workers, independent contractors, franchisees, guests, customers, vendors, and suppliers. And we do not tolerate harassment of non-employees by employees. To summarize, not only does the policy sometimes protect against inappropriate behavior outside of the restaurant, it can also protect against inappropriate behavior by outside parties, like customers. Before moving on, please select the policy icon. The policy states that all employees must treat each other with respect and take steps to ensure the work environment is free from harassment. Any harassing conduct that creates a hostile work environment for our employees will not be tolerated. This is also true of harassment based on factors like someone's gender, race, age, sexual orientation, disability status, citizenship status, military service, or any other characteristics protected under the law. To better understand this language in the policy, let's take a closer look at the characteristics of individuals that are specifically protected by the policy. Race, color, or national origin. Age. Religion, religious beliefs, and religious practices. Sex, including pregnancy, childbirth, and breastfeeding. Citizenship status or ancestry. Physical or mental disability, medical condition, or genetic information. Marital status. Military or veteran status. Sexual orientation. Gender identity, gender expression, and gender stereotypes. Status of being transgender. All employees must treat each other with respect and dignity and take steps to ensure the work environment is free from harassment and discrimination. Here is a list of protected characteristics again. Let's take a closer look at what some of these characteristics are meant to describe. Select each button to explore some general definitions. Sexual orientation, a person's sexual attraction to others. Gender identity is one's innermost concept of self as male, female, a blend of both, or neither. How individuals perceive themselves and what they call themselves. One's gender identity can be the same or different from their sex assigned at birth. Gender expression is the external appearance of one's gender identity, usually expressed through behavior, clothing, haircut, or voice, and which may or may not conform to socially defined behaviors and characteristics typically associated with being either masculine or feminine. Status of being transgender is a general term used when a person's gender identity or expression is different from the person's gender assignment at birth. There are other related terms that can be used, but the bottom line is that the policy prohibits unwelcome or offensive comments about a person's sexual characteristics, gender, or gender identity, no matter how these characteristics are named or labeled. Regardless of your intent, some words or actions are inappropriate, offensive, and prohibited. Offensive words or actions can be in the form of the following. Click each speech bubble. Compliments based on physical appearance or that are sexual in nature. Sexually suggestive comments. Inappropriate jokes. Teasing about a person's appearance or their age, race, or sex. Insults, unwanted nicknames, or stereotyping based on protected characteristics. Sharing emails, texts, or pictures that are degrading, make someone uncomfortable, or are insulting, even if the conduct is not sexual in nature. The policy prohibits unwelcome and offensive conduct based on protected characteristics.
I'm not a big fan of these morning shifts. I absolutely hate making the burritos.
Yeah, but at least Burrito Man is managing.
I can't believe you call him that to his face.
What? He loves it. He's the one who told us about that nickname. According to him, it was his first word as a baby. Burrito. Burrito.
Burrito Man has got to be getting up there. What do you say, mid-50s?
At least. He's a very old sombrero.
I sometimes see him take naps in the crew room. I think he's got Alzheimer's or dementia or something.
Come on, don't be mean. You shouldn't joke about stuff like that.
When I get to be as old as Burrito Man, just kill me.
What about as old as Earl? OMG, you guys should have seen him yesterday trying to work the POS system. Reading glasses were falling, he was sweating, he's got that old man smell. He was a mess.
I think he still uses a flip phone. I'm totally serious.
Hey, I got a joke. You good, Miss PC? You won't burst into tears or anything.
Whatever.
Tell me it's okay to tell a joke. Tell me it's okay and you won't be offended.
Shut up. Just tell it.
Do you know they've come out with a low-fat communion wafer? It's called I Can't Believe It's Not Jesus. What? I can say it. I'm Catholic. I even went to Catholic school. I'm a good Catholic boy.
Select the Next button. Please select which protected characteristics were raised from the following remarks made by Vince. Drag each protected class to the matching example. Incorrect matches will be rejected, so try again if you don't get the correct answer right away. It is important to note that while your restaurant's policy likely applies to all employees when they are working on restaurant property, it also likely applies when using any of your restaurant's communication systems, equipment, or resources, or during off-site company-sponsored events, meetings, training, or other work activities, when on and commuting to and from business trips, and at any time outside working hours when an employee takes some action, including text messaging on their personal devices, or using social media that has an impact on employment with or engagement by their restaurant. The work environment is often affected by actions and events that take place outside the four walls of your restaurant.
I love our day drinking tradition. I love it, and I love you. Oh. We should talk to the shift managers about making day drinking mandatory for everyone. Feel the love.
Look at those two making out. They look like one of those black and white cookies.
I bet you he can ball.
Excuse me?
I mean hoops. Get your mind out of the gutter, girl. Unlike our man Byron, he's the only black guy I know that doesn't hoop.
Yeah, and how many black people you know? Your ass never leave your lily white hood.
I leave my hood.
Speaking of that, how many tats do you have? Everyone from your hood tries to be gangster and gets attacked.
How do you know that I don't have a gangsta tat?
No way.
We need to record this for the world to see. They may not remember it tomorrow.
She's got a boyfriend, doesn't she?
Yep.
This should be awkward at work. And it's posted.
Select the next.
To consider whether the policy applies, the key question is whether the conduct can possibly have an impact on the work environment. No matter the time or place, if you are in a restaurant-related situation or are interacting with people from work in a way that could affect the work environment, the policy may apply. As we just saw, be especially careful when getting together with coworkers in a party-type atmosphere, such as bars and other venues outside of work, where racy or controversial topics are more likely to be talked about. Words and actions can impact your work environment. Stereotyping or making assumptions about groups of people, like assuming someone is good at running or likes a certain type of music because of their color or ethnicity, is almost always offensive and unwelcome and can violate your restaurant's policy. Always avoid stereotypes or making assumptions about people. You should review your restaurant's policy on digital communication and social media. Even if your restaurant does not have a formal policy in place, there are some important things to keep in mind when communicating with other restaurant employees through text messages or other social media channels. When communicating digitally, as we all know, messages can end up anywhere in the world. Text messages, emails, or posts on social media might seem funny in the moment, but might not the next day. Suppose Laura uploaded the photo of two coworkers kissing to her social media feed with the following description and hashtags. Select the phone below to see Laura's messages. Laura adds the hashtags McDmakeout, McBusted, and McCheater. Laura also tags all the coworkers. Consider who else sees this inappropriate photo and how this could lead to a very hostile work environment. Be careful. Social media users often have very little control over who sees a post or if a post goes viral. Even simply forwarding someone's posts may have consequences. Avoid posts that reasonably could be viewed as malicious, obscene, threatening, or intimidating, including posts with discriminatory remarks or content, sexual harassment, and threats of violence, or similar inappropriate or unlawful conduct. Pause before you post. Please select the policy icon to see what the policy says about reporting. Who can I report concerns or complaints to? The template policy we've been discussing states that the following resources are available to you to raise concerns of potential policy violations: your general manager, your human resources representative, your restaurant's owner-operator. Note, the policy points out that you do not have to discuss issues with your manager before raising a concern or complaint to someone else. You can go to whichever resource you are most comfortable with. Please contact your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator to review your restaurant's policy and determine what resources your restaurant has put in place for reporting concerns. Select each icon below. Your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator may support you through that process and assist you with any behavior you believe may violate the policy. Please raise concerns or complaints about any possible violations of the policy that you observe. This will help ensure your restaurant has a work environment free from discrimination, harassment, and retaliation. Of course, depending on the severity of the conduct and any physical safety issues you may experience, you may also want to reach out to third parties, such as local law enforcement. You are also able to report harassment and discrimination to your state's agency. Check the box to acknowledge you have read the contents of this page to continue with the course. Please select the policy icon to see what happens once I raise a concern. Complaints will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly and fairly. This means that a neutral person will conduct the investigation. That person may be someone affiliated with the owner-operator or your restaurant, or an outside third-party investigator, depending on the circumstances. The neutral person will talk to you, possible witnesses, and the person who allegedly engaged in the misconduct. While the investigation is taking place, we will take appropriate steps to ensure your safety in the workplace. Those steps are dependent on the circumstances and may include a temporary reassignment or leave, immediate directions to others to cease certain behaviors, and training. After the investigation of your complaint is completed and any appropriate steps are taken, you can still provide information about any other situation that makes you feel uncomfortable. Also, if you feel like you are being punished or treated poorly after you make a complaint, you should reach out to one of the above resources immediately. In addition, complaints will be taken seriously and investigated thoroughly, impartially, and in a timely manner. The identity of individuals who raise concerns regarding harassment, alleged victims, witnesses, and alleged harassers, along with information obtained as part of an investigation, will be kept confidential to the extent possible and permitted by law. What happens after an investigation? If our investigation confirms that this policy has been violated or that inappropriate conduct has occurred, we will take immediate corrective action that is proportionate to the violation. Corrective action can come in any form, including termination, reassignment to another job or location, changes in reporting relationships, written warning, training, coaching, counseling, and/or other measures that we deem appropriate under the circumstances. Finally, please note, the policy expressly prohibits retaliation against those who raise potential violations and those who participate in investigations into potential violations. If you have questions regarding the investigation process in your restaurant or ever feel like you are being punished or treated poorly after you make a complaint, you should reach out to your owner-operator or other person identified by your owner-operator. Is the following statement correct? Under the template policy we've been discussing, if you report a violation, you can be assured that complete confidentiality will be kept and your name will never be mentioned during the investigation. Please select the policy icon to see what the policy says about retaliation. Retaliation means being punished or experiencing a negative employment action because you raised a concern or complaint of a potential policy violation or participated in an investigation. Employees who provide information about conduct they believe may violate this policy will not be retaliated against in any way by McDonald's. This protection against retaliation also covers those who provide information in an investigation of alleged policy violations raised by someone else. All employees have a duty to cooperate in investigations or otherwise respond to questions regarding alleged harassment. This policy expressly prohibits retaliation against those who raise potential violations and those who participate in investigations into potential violations. The policy prohibits retaliation. Retaliation is against the law as well. Examples of retaliation may include termination of employment, reduction in pay, hours, or favorable work assignments, disciplining or reassigning someone, demoting or transferring an employee, unreasonably or unjustifiably excluding an individual from normal workplace conversations and making them feel unwelcome, undermining or deliberately impeding someone's work, circulating rumors or gossip, unwarranted criticism or belittling of opinions. Don't treat someone differently because they made a policy complaint or participated in a related investigation. Check the box to acknowledge you have read the contents of this page to continue with the course. Hopefully, we all now realize that for many reasons, a policy against discrimination, harassment, and retaliation is one of the most important policies for a restaurant and its employees. Because of that, the consequences for violating such a policy can be severe, including termination. Please select the policy icon to review the consequences set forth in the template policy we've been discussing today. If our investigation confirms that the policy has been violated or that inappropriate conduct has occurred, we will take immediate corrective action that is proportionate to the violation. Corrective action can come in any form, including termination, reassignment to another job or location, changes in reporting relationships, written warning, training, coaching, counseling, and/or other measures that we deem appropriate under the circumstances. There might be times when you find yourself in an experience or you witness an experience that is inappropriate and does not align with your restaurant's values. When those situations occur, speak up and be an ally. If you do see something that isn't right, you should speak up. But speaking up is not always easy. There are many reasons why you may not speak up in the moment, including feeling embarrassed, not sure it's your place, don't want to make the situation worse, don't want to get involved, don't want to call more attention to the bad behavior, fear of retaliation. It can sometimes be difficult to decide if you should speak up when you see a tense situation at work. How can you know when it's the right thing to do? Just ask yourself these questions when you feel conflicted about a situation. Am I offended by what I see? Do I find this situation concerning? Does that person look uncomfortable? Does watching this make me uncomfortable? If your answer to any of these items is yes, it's a good bet that it is appropriate for you to speak up. Ideally, all employees, if they feel comfortable, will try to stop the inappropriate conduct of others or help the victim of inappropriate conduct. This is called bystander intervention. Select the plus icon to learn more. Restaurants encourage bystander intervention because if everyone is willing to stand up for one another, the workplace will be more civil, more productive, and more respectful. There are different ways to speak up, depending on the situation and your comfort level. Drag the slider to learn more. Be direct. Identify the correct action or behavior. That word is not okay. Please don't say that in the workplace. Redirect. Bring up a new topic and redirect the conversation. I don't want to risk offending someone. Let's change the subject. Delay. Address the behavior or discomfort at a more neutral time. I didn't want to say this in front of everyone, but I hope you are open to my thoughts on something you said earlier. Seek assistance. Partner with your HR representative or other resources available at your restaurant. I'm trying to be more aware of others' perspectives, and I'm wondering if a conversation the team had earlier was offensive. What do you think? You and your coworkers not only work together, but should also respect and look out for each other. Everyone has a responsibility and an opportunity to make their restaurant environment a fun, safe, and great place to work. Thank you for taking the time and paying attention to this very important topic. If you have any questions about any topics discussed in this course, or questions relating to your restaurant's policy against harassment, discrimination, and retaliation, please reach out to your owner-operator or other person designated by your owner-operator as soon as possible. We want to hear your feedback on this course. To share your thoughts, please use the feedback link on the page where you launched this course.
Welcome to your course. About this course. Welcome to McDonald's Restaurant Workplace Violence Prevention e-learning program. This e-learning program is one of a number of initiatives in place to create safe and welcoming restaurants for employees and guests. The information contained in this program applies to all McOpCo restaurants. The program is provided as an optional resource to owner-operators. If you work for an owner-operator organization, please check with your owner-operator or the person designated by your owner-operator to determine whether and which of these materials your owner-operator has chosen to use in your restaurant, if any. Please note that the images used for this e-learning were taken before the outbreak of coronavirus, COVID-19, and do not reflect the safety measures we currently have in place. With the health and well-being of our guests and people top of mind, McDonald's continues to proactively make changes to our restaurant operations and office settings on the expert guidance of health authorities. Restaurant Workplace Violence Prevention e-learning program. Module 1. Rights, Risks, and Responsibilities. Most of the time, guests receive a positive experience when visiting McDonald's brand restaurants and are satisfied with the service they receive. Select each image to learn more. There are times when guests' expectations are not met and they become upset, frustrated, and even angry. There are also a minority of people who behave in ways that are inappropriate or disruptive and a concern to us and other guests. The COVID-19 crisis is one example of how governments and authorities may impose restrictions on businesses that are necessary for everyone's safety. When this happens, most guests are understanding, but a minority have directed their frustrations and anger towards restaurant employees and/or other guests. It is understandable for guests to be angry, but it is never okay to be abusive or aggressive. This module aims to raise awareness of some of the situations you may encounter in your role and suggest approaches for dealing with these more safely and effectively. In this program, we use the term supervisor, which can also include a senior colleague or manager. Key messages. Each person and set of circumstances is different, so it is important to assess every situation before approaching people and taking action. People can be unpredictable, and an approach that may work well in one situation may escalate another, so judgment is needed. Do not put yourself or others at risk. Act within local laws and regulations. Your restaurant may have specific policies to guide you in dealing with the most common situations where conflict and disruptive behavior is likely to occur. Select each icon to view some key messages. The safety of employees and guests is a priority. You can help reduce conflict by being positive and helpful, and by familiarizing yourself with your restaurant's safety policies and procedures. Everyone has a role to play, even if it is just making someone aware if you notice signs of potential conflict or disruptive behavior. Should incidents occur, it is important that they are reported appropriately. To obtain further information on the topics raised in this module, you may contact your supervisor, HR consultant, or other person or resource identified in your restaurant's policy. Defining workplace violence. Workplace violence happens when you are abused, threatened, or assaulted in circumstances related to your work. Select each image to learn more. Abused. This includes any verbal abuse directed against you personally that makes you feel upset, concerned, or alarmed. Examples include insults, swearing, and shouting. Threatened. This includes any other threat of violence or intimidation against you, either by words or gestures. Examples include someone moving close to you in a threatening manner or making threats such as saying, "I know where to find you." Assaulted. This can be a physical act or an immediate threat of assault. More common examples include pushing, grabbing, scratching, striking, spitting, and throwing objects. COVID-19. COVID-19 created uncertainty and situations that could be stressful for guests. Restrictions were put in place to keep everyone safe, but these can also cause conflict. Guest frustration and anger being directed at restaurant employees. conflict between stressed colleagues, conflict between guests over line jumping or others not respecting social distancing. Although circumstances like these are beyond your control, you have the ability to influence the behavior of others and help de-escalate conflict. You can do this by being understanding and helpful and through positive communication. Your employer is strongly committed to providing a workplace that promotes the health, safety, and productivity of its employees. Your employer expects employees to treat each other and those with whom they conduct business with courtesy, professionalism, and respect. Your restaurant likely prohibits violence, threats of violence, and other conduct that jeopardizes or harms the safety of employees and others in the workplace and during work-related activities, including company-sponsored events. Your restaurant likely has a workplace violence prevention policy that outlines its approach to mitigating the risk of violence to employees and some of the tactics it uses to create a safe and secure dining experience for guests and neighbors. Defining workplace violence. During your shift, you dealt with a group of young people causing a disturbance in the restaurant, and they were asked to leave. On your way home, while waiting for a ride, you notice the group that were causing the disturbance, and they approach you. A young male shouts to you from the group, "Hey, you're the one that got us thrown out. I know where you live. You had better watch your back." Is this an incident of workplace violence? Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. Where can workplace violence come from? Workplace violence can take many forms and could come from anyone, including guests or, on occasion, other colleagues. Select each image to find out where workplace violence could come from. Number 1. Acts by people who have no other connection with the workplace, but enter to commit robbery or another crime. Number 2. Directed at employees by guests, vendors, or others that use our restaurants. Number 3. Directed at coworkers, supervisors, or managers by a present or former employee. Number 4. Incidents in the workplace involving a person who doesn't work there, but has a personal relationship with an employee, for example, an abusive partner or family member. Recognizing common risks of workplace violence. This program focuses on verbal abuse and aggression towards employees by angry guests and by people behaving in ways that are disruptive. Such behavior can impact negatively, as it can increase risks to employees and guest safety, may deter guests and harm sales, can attract negative news or social media attention that may adversely impact public perception of the McDonald's brand, your restaurant or other restaurants, and you or other restaurant employees. You may experience behaviors in your workplace that cause distress for you and your guests, and that can lead to conflict. This may involve: select each option to learn more. Complaints of dissatisfaction. Customers may be dissatisfied with their restaurant experience for a variety of reasons, including poor quality, service, cleanliness, QSC, long wait times, missing items, unavailable items, managers and crew not showing empathy and failing to manage guest complaints in an effective way. Inappropriate use of restaurant facilities. Individuals may engage in inappropriate use of restaurant facilities that could cause concern to you and or guests, such as making inappropriate use of the restrooms or unwelcome requests of other restaurant guests. Disorderly conduct. Disorderly conduct includes, but is not limited to, belligerent speech, excessive arguing or use of profanity, intentionally damaging or destroying restaurant property or the property of another guest, willfully ignoring or disobeying health and safety regulations currently in place, and or disrespecting restaurant employees or other guests. Your response to disorderly conduct will likely vary depending on the severity of the conduct and other circumstances. Criminal activity. You and your restaurant can be put at risk by people intent on stealing from you, your restaurant, or your guests, dealing drugs, etc. Conflicts between employees. Inappropriate acts of an employee or former employee towards colleagues or guests. Disruptive behavior and young people. Common scenarios include groups of teenagers congregating in dining areas, the entrance, and going in and out of the restrooms. This can be a cause of conflict at any time, and especially now with COVID-19 tensions and precautions. Look at this scenario and select the icons to consider the impact this may have on other employees, guests, and the brand. Select each icon to deter guests. May create anxiety for guests and damage the brand. Doorway. Creates a risk by blocking the entrance and exits to a restaurant and makes it difficult for others to pass while respecting personal space. Noise. This could create excess noise, nuisance, and disturbance to guests and the local community. Other groups. Could encourage other groups to congregate and increase antisocial behavior. Employees and morale. It may be difficult for some younger staff to deal with, particularly if of a similar age and/or they know people in the group. This could affect team morale and performance. Conflict. Could develop conflict between the group and other guests, who may choose to challenge the group directly, for example, over not respecting precautions. Recognizing common risks of workplace violence. Which of the following would be true in relation to alcohol-related issues? Match each term into the true and false columns. Correct. You have matched the correct terms. Personal safety tips. Personal safety is paramount, whether it is reducing risks of COVID-19 infection by following guidance or avoiding becoming a target of crime and violence. The term social distancing is familiar to us as a COVID-19 precaution, and during this program, we will explain why respecting personal space is important at all times for effective communication and ensuring our personal safety. Safety at work. When arriving and leaving the restaurant, it is important to be alert to people who may present a threat. If in doubt, consider finding another accessible place of safety. When leaving the restaurant and in doubt, consider returning to the restaurant or seeking another accessible place of safety. Also be alert when working alone or in remote areas in and around the restaurant. Ensure colleagues know where you are so you can look out for each other. Rights and responsibilities. Find out more about some of the key responsibilities for employers and employees. Select each. Employers. Employers must take reasonable steps to ensure the health, safety, and well-being of their employees and guests. This includes deterring opportunity or harm from work-related violence. Steps to reduce the risk of violence will be shared later in this course. Employees. It is important to remember that employees share this duty of care. It is not just employers who have to take steps to reduce the risk of violence. Employees must also play their part by following procedures and not taking risks. Security and risk reduction methods. Safety and security is everyone's responsibility. Every restaurant employee has a responsibility to help reduce the risks. There are a number of things that can be done, and it is useful to think about proactive and reactive measures that can be taken. Proactive measures. Proactive measures are things that can be done to prevent something from happening. This can be a policy, procedure, or process that is in place, or something that you do personally to reduce the likelihood of something happening. For example, select each icon to learn more. Being familiar with and following local safety and security policies and procedures. Delivering exceptional guest experience, proactive service delivery. Deployment of physical security measures, including overt video surveillance, ample restaurant and parking lot lighting, or contract security guards. Treating everyone with respect and dignity. Proactively seek opportunities to build a strong working relationship with the local police or guard service. Posting signage on the property relating to prohibited behavior, including smoking, loitering, seating limits, and declaring video surveillance is in use. Understanding and following the workplace violence prevention policy in place at your restaurant. Training on conflict resolution and nonviolent responses. Proactive measures. Click to reveal what proactive steps are expected of employees in various roles. For crew and guest experience leaders, click the person on the left. For managers, click the person on the right. Select crew and guest experience leaders play an important role in preventing conflict by Number 1. Delivering exceptional guest service, greeting and acknowledging all guests promptly. Number 2. Doing tasks professionally. Number 3. Being observant and working as a team. Crew members are not expected to deal with challenging behaviors and should simply bring these to the attention of shift leaders or other individuals designated by their owner-operator. Managers. Managers have additional experience and training. This equips them to better handle and resolve complaints, as well as other difficult situations. Managers also play a proactive role in establishing relationships with the local community and with agencies including police and other law enforcement. This contributes to a community approach in addressing the root causes of shared issues, such as disruptive behavior. Reactive measures. Reactive measures include actions taken to prevent conflict or situations from escalating. Despite our efforts to prevent conflict, emotional and challenging situations may still arise. In this program, we will consider ways to respond professionally to such situations and stay safe. We will also consider emergency protocols and actions to be taken by McDonald's managers during and following violent incidents. Module 2. Factors that influence behavior. Recognize instinctive reactions. The rational and emotional mind. Broadly speaking, we all have two mindsets. The emotional mind, the one that feels, and the rational mind, the one that thinks. These two minds work together most of the time. However, when we are upset, angry, or feel threatened, the emotional mind can take over rapidly. As a result, we can lose much of our ability to think clearly. Recognize instinctive reactions, the rational and emotional mind. It is important to realize that when someone is emotional, they do not respond well to rational statements, such as calm down, if you just listen to me, or the rules are. People generally need to be more rational before issues can be fully resolved, i.e., calmer. Recognize instinctive reactions. Which of the following best describes the emotional versus the rational response? Select the best answer from the choices below. Incorrect. The more emotional we become, the less rational we are. Recognize instinctive reactions. Fight or flight. When we feel threatened or intimidated, we begin to feel uncomfortable. It is easy to become defensive and say or do something that makes things worse. Without knowing it, we are subconsciously getting ready to take one of two options. Select each option to learn more. Fight. Feel as if we should defend our position. Flight. Get out of, leave the situation. Recognize instinctive reactions. We can all experience the fight or flight response, i.e., both employees and the individuals we are interacting with. We increase the risk of confrontation, i.e., fight response if we invade someone's personal space, make them feel threatened, block their exit path. Giving someone physical space and a clear route to an exit can help reduce the risk of provoking a fight response. In addition, there is also the possibility that we may freeze in a situation, like a startled deer caught in the headlights. Some people may have a reduced ability to control their impulses and emotional outbursts, making it more likely that if they feel threatened or embarrassed, they may feel the need to defend their position or status and experience the fight response. Recognize instinctive reactions. Consider the positioning of the manager in relation to the guest. Orange shirt. Is the manager in a good position? Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. Recognize instinctive reactions. Now drag and drop the manager into a better position. Correct. This is probably a better position, as both the manager and the guest have a clear exit. Recognize instinctive reactions. Select the best answer from the choices below. You make someone less likely to stay and fight if you. Correct. It is important to give people clear exit routes in a conflict situation. If you block someone's exit, we reduce their options and push him or her towards a fight response. Triggers and warning signs. A trigger is something that causes the escalation of a situation. Triggers are often small things that, when combined with other problems, spark off aggression. We can all be triggered, and it is important to be aware of your own triggers and to make efforts not to respond negatively to them. Here are some everyday examples of triggers. Select each image to learn more. Embarrassment. When someone is embarrassed or confused, they may react angrily. It can be especially difficult for someone with communication difficulties to understand and to express themselves clearly. Avoid doing or saying anything that may cause embarrassment. Rudeness. This is a very common trigger for many people and is often associated with poor service and employees who don't smile or acknowledge an individual or treat them with courtesy and respect. Being ignored. This can include having to wait for attention, being passed from one person to another, and not being kept informed or involved. This can link to a sense of unfairness, where others seem to be getting attention when it is our turn. Fear. When the emotional mind starts to take over, it can be hard to rationalize a situation, and this can easily lead to an overreaction. Some of the individuals you may communicate with have limited ability to understand situations and/or convey their feelings. Some may also have low self-esteem or mental health issues. They may be confused and easily frightened, especially in unfamiliar situations and surroundings. Triggers and warning signs. Please be careful not to do or say anything that may embarrass a person in front of their friends. Young people are especially sensitive to how they are seen by their peer group. This includes our young employees, who can be embarrassed when serving young guests they know outside of work. Young people may be particularly sensitive to some of the following. Select each option to learn more. Peer pressure. Young people may experience peer pressure in several ways. Examples include when peers influence them to behave in specific ways, or from where young people follow the crowd, both of which are driven by the need to fit in and be accepted by their peers. Peer pressure can also come from other factors, such as bullying. Challenged. Being directly challenged by authority. Injustice. Perceived injustice, it's not fair. Shame. Shame, embarrassment, or humiliation. Triggers and warning signs. Select each option to learn more. Young people. We may find some young people inside and outside restaurants challenging. They may also be easily led, victimized, and vulnerable. Groups. People often behave differently when part of a group and can be easily influenced by others. Conflict involving one group member can lead to others supporting them and uniting against us. Care, therefore, needs to be taken when approaching groups and to stay positive and safe. People that are homeless. Some homeless people can present challenges. A significant number suffer from mental health problems and may suffer from alcohol substance abuse. This might result in their behavior being unpredictable when approached. Some are vulnerable individuals who may be cold, hungry, unwell, and simply seeking refuge somewhere warm and safe. Alcohol, drug-related. Alcohol and drugs can make people do and say things they normally wouldn't. Intoxicated individuals are unpredictable and vulnerable, and more likely to behave in ways that put themselves and others at risk of harm. Triggers and warning signs. Be alert and recognize the risks of escalation when handling situations of disruptive behavior. This may involve triggers related to rowdy or inconsiderate behavior by intoxicated individuals or groups, or people causing annoyance to guests in other ways, such as begging, panhandling. Please remember that these individuals are sometimes vulnerable. Your primary responsibility is the safety and well-being of yourself, but you also have a responsibility towards the safety of others, including vulnerable individuals who may be at risk. It is important to remember that some employees are also more vulnerable, and employees need to look out for each other. Inhibitors. Of course, not everyone becomes abusive, argumentative, or violent when they are upset. This can be because of a number of factors, sometimes referred to as inhibitors. Select each icon for examples of inhibitors. Self-control. People have varied levels of self-control. Everyone should aim to use slow, deep breathing to assist in lowering heart rate, maintain self-control, and rational thinking. Not get angry or take negative statements or responses personally. Maintain a positive attitude. Personal values. Personal values are different for each person and vary in intensity. They influence what you believe is acceptable or unacceptable. Fear the other person may fight back. Most people don't want to get hurt and will avoid situations where they fear this might happen. Knowledge of the consequences. Consequences can include embarrassment, social or legal consequences, loss of job. Module 3. Avoiding conflict and influencing positive outcomes. Influence positive outcomes. Avoiding conflict and managing disruptive behavior through positive communication. We have already looked at factors that can trigger conflict. Often conflict arises through misunderstandings due to a block in communication or an unmet need. The best way to be proactive and avoid difficult situations is by providing outstanding quality, service, and cleanliness (QSC) to all guests and using guest recovery skills when there is a complaint. If people don't understand what is happening or feel their needs and expectations are not being met, it can be a real source of frustration. In truth, most of us find it stressful if we don't know what is going on or feel we are not receiving the service we expect. Influence positive outcomes. Making choices in conflict situations. Your response to a situation can make things better or worse. Even though it may not always feel like it, you have a choice about how you respond. Some choices will escalate a situation, while others will help calm it down. Influence positive outcomes. Proactive service. Being proactive is also about preempting possible causes of conflict and taking action before they become a problem and guests become frustrated. Influence positive outcomes. You are on shift and notice a man slumped at a table. He seems to be sleeping. A woman who came in with him is asking guests for any change so she can buy a hot drink and some food. How might this situation impact employees or guests in the restaurant? Deter guests. Some guests may feel uncomfortable and not return to the restaurant if this is allowed to happen. or if the situation escalates because it is not handled appropriately. Difficult for employees. Employees may feel uncomfortable in such a situation and may be unsure how to respond. They may also feel vulnerable, as some people can become abusive and aggressive when challenged. Personal safety risk. Some people can become abusive and aggressive when asked to stop a behavior causing concern. Create guest conflict. The situation may lead to conflict between guests. For example, if some guests disapprove of the behavior and others are perceived to encourage it by their generosity. Influence positive outcomes. You are aware that there may be a delay in serving or helping a guest. Which of the following is a good example of how to manage guest expectations? Select the best. Correct. Often, people get frustrated by delays in service, and in many cases, it is the lack of information that builds the frustration that can escalate to anger. Keeping people informed and providing information when you have it helps to reassure them and ease frustrations. Influence positive outcomes. Attitude and behavior. We may not be able to predict or control a person's behavior, but we can often influence them by the way we respond. My attitude. Personal thoughts and feelings you have towards other people or groups. People cannot see what you think and feel, but it may be evident in the way you communicate with them. My behavior. You communicate through your behavior, e.g., words and actions, which is how others form an impression of you. It is important, therefore, to stay professional and not let your negative thoughts and feelings show in your behavior, or to discriminate based on them. Your attitude, guest. Some guests may start with negative thoughts and feelings towards you, perhaps due to a previous experience. Your behavior, guest. The way a guest thinks or feels about you may show in their behavior, which may be patronizing or hostile. If you can avoid taking this personally and respond helpfully, you can influence the way they think and feel about the situation, and often change their behavior. Influence positive outcomes. Key messages. Sometimes you can change the way others think and feel by being positive and helpful in your behavior towards them. This attitude and behavior cycle highlights why it is so important to behave positively and professionally at all times. People that are homeless sometimes visit McDonald's brand restaurants. Click the images to view some of the key messages for influencing positive outcomes. Key message 1. Only a minority of people that are homeless present challenges, such as overstaying or begging panhandling, and it is important to remain polite and respectful. Key message 2. It is equally important to recognize that people that are homeless may be vulnerable individuals who are experiencing difficult times. Key message 3. It is important to focus on the behavior of concern and not judge the person. Influence positive outcomes. In situations where you may need to ask a person to leave who has not made a purchase, it is not uncommon for another guest to challenge your actions and offer to purchase them a meal. In this situation, you should acknowledge the guest's kindness, explaining that the meal will need to be in a takeout bag if you have concerns about their behavior. Influence positive outcomes. What is the main concern in this scenario where the man is sleeping and the woman is begging, panhandling in the restaurant? Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. It is easy to presume people that are homeless cause problems, yet it is not their position or status that is of concern. It only becomes a problem if they behave in ways likely to cause nuisance or distress to others, such as begging, panhandling, loitering, or otherwise disturbing guests. Influence positive outcomes. In the scenario, we have looked at which of the following would be most appropriate. Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. Explain to them that begging, panhandling, sleeping in the restaurant is not safe or appropriate. Offer them directions to the nearest local shelter where they can get a meal and somewhere to stay. Barriers to communication. Here's a picture of an angry guest confronting a team member. Click on each of the hover points to find out about some of the things which make communication harder. Select emotions. When we become emotional, we are less likely to understand clearly and respond effectively. Noise and distractions. It can be hard to concentrate in a noisy environment. Cultural and language differences. Attitudes and values can be very different across different cultures. Negative perceptions, prejudices. We must control negative feelings or it will show in our behavior. Alcohol and drugs can make it difficult to focus on the matter at hand. Overcoming barriers to communication. So, how could you reduce the impact of communication barriers? Select each option to learn more. Body language. Aggressive posture, square-on stance with a clenched fist. Non-aggressive, open stance with open palms. Give the other person plenty of space. By maintaining an appropriate physical distance, it is easier to communicate and calm a situation, and it helps ensure your personal safety. Keep your language simple. For example, let me check your order. Reduce distractions. For example, if safe to do so, shall we go somewhere a bit quieter to talk about this? Listen and respond to the other person. For example, I see. I'm sorry to hear that you've been waiting 10 minutes to get your meal. Channels of communication. When communicating in difficult and emotive situations, it is especially important to choose your words carefully. It is not just what you say, it's how you say it. For example, the tone of your voice and your body language, nonverbal communication. If your words, tone, and body language are consistent, people will more likely listen and trust you. Select which of the following phrases you think will get a more positive response. Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. This is less confrontational as it avoids using you. Select which of the following phrases you think will get a more positive response. Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. Phrase B is less confrontational as it avoids you. In this example, it also offers an alternative, so we are trying to be helpful. Overcoming barriers to communication. Sometimes things can escalate or de-escalate situations. Place the statements in the box dependent on whether this language will escalate or de-escalate the wrong behavior. Correct. Remember, though, that sometimes words can mean lots of different things according to how they are said. We have to pay attention to the words that we use, the way that we say them, e.g., how fast, how loud, and our body language as we say them, whether we are staring, how we are standing, and so on. Self-awareness and control. You can help prevent situations from escalating by being self-aware and recognizing how our actions and words might impact on others. Sometimes bystanders will film situations on their mobile devices. This is not a problem if you remain professional and respectful. In fact, it may help protect you, your restaurant, and the McDonald's brand from criticism and negative publicity. Module 4. Dynamic Risk Assessment. Dynamic Risk Assessment, Situation Assessment, and Safety. It is not always possible to predict what will happen at work, so we depend on our ability to quickly and continually assess situations, which is known as Dynamic Risk Assessment. Dynamic risk assessment. Every situation is different, and your response options will differ according to the risk or perceived risks at the time. In this section, we will explore some considerations. Select each image to learn more. Personal safety. It is important in all circumstances of potential conflict and disruptive behavior to ensure the personal safety of yourself and others. Escalation. Be vigilant to rising situations and, where possible, prevent them from escalating early on through being positive and proactive. Do not judge. It is important not to judge or make assumptions about people. To do so is contrary to the values of the McDonald's brand and may escalate the situation and increase risk. Dynamic risk assessment. It is important to consider the risks before rushing in. The POPS model provides a simple approach to identifying risks in varied situations. Select each letter to learn more. People. What do you see and notice about the person or people present? How are they behaving? How do they appear? Is anyone else present that may take their side and present a threat to you? Could they be intoxicated? Could the person simply be unwell or in need of our assistance? You must consider the safety of everyone, the persons involved, yourself, other guests, and team members. Objects. Are there any weapons around? Innocent objects that could be used as weapons or thrown, e.g. chairs, wet floor signs, etc. Is there anything that someone may trip over, such as a bag? Place. Are you inside or outside? Can others see where you are? Ensure you have a safe exit route and consider where you would go if you needed to leave quickly. Situation. Are there other factors present in the circumstances that influence risk? Is this a situation you have experienced before? Who is available for support or to hand over to? What time of day is it, and are there any restaurant-specific factors to consider, e.g. local nightclubs or bars nearby? Remember, you do not need to handle all situations on your own. If the situation presents risk, you should consider asking for support or handing over to your manager or supervisor. Situation. Are there other factors present in the circumstances that influence risk? Is this a situation you have experienced before? Who is available for support or to hand over to? What time of day is it, and are there any restaurant-specific factors to consider, e.g. local nightclubs or bars nearby? Remember, you do not need to handle all situations on your own. If the situation presents risk, you should consider asking for support or handing over to your manager or supervisor. Alcohol-related. We will now explore how the POPS model can be applied to a situation involving conflict. It is 8:15 p.m. on Friday evening. The restaurant is busy, and local nightlife activity from bars is increasing. You look up when you hear raised voices. A man and woman who appear to have been drinking are engaged in a heated conversation. The volume and language escalate, and guests are noticeably agitated. Dynamic risk assessment. Click on the icons to review the specific risks in this situation. Select each icon to learn more. Person. There are two people involved, one male and one female, and it would appear they may have been drinking heavily. Emotions are high and their inhibitions may have been reduced due to alcohol use. You have never seen them before and know little else about them. Could either be in a vulnerable situation or in distress. Are they with anyone else that may present a risk if approached? Objects. There don't appear to be any objects in view, but either person could have hidden items that could be used as a weapon. Place. This is a public area and thoroughfare to the counter and support is available. You have a clear exit, as do the two people involved. There are other guests witnessing the incident and security cameras cover the area. Situation. They appear to be arguing. This is an emotionally charged situation, and rational thinking may be difficult for them. It is important to reduce emotions and prevent escalation. It is also important to highlight that their behavior, shouting and swearing, is unacceptable. You may have to ask them to leave if the behavior continues. Be aware that this could be a domestic dispute, and there is a risk one or both turn their anger towards you if you intervene. Dynamic risk assessment. The restaurant is busy, and a guest approaches an employee at the counter. You had better sort that out before I do. There are kids here. What would you do? Select the most appropriate action from the options and click Submit below. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. The man returns back to his family. What do you do next? Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. Module 5. Non-aggressive approaches to risk situations. Positive options for responding to incidents. Sometimes you can quickly deal with a situation yourself, and this could be the most appropriate option if safe to do so. Response options. Select each image to learn more. Acknowledge. If dealing with a conflict situation, acknowledge the guest's concerns, listen to them, and confirm the main issues. Offer. Offer a solution. This could include handing over to a more senior manager or offering to deal with the issue yourself. Implement. Implement and follow up on the solution. Show the guest that you are actively taking steps to solve the issue without delay and reassure them. Displaying a non-aggressive approach. We know that one's ability to listen and rationalize becomes increasingly limited when they are emotional. Tone and body language, which we will look at later in this section, are very important in managing conflict in emotional situations. You should demonstrate body language that lets the other person know that you don't want to argue with them. Be aware of your exits and route to safety. Also, ensure the other person has a clear exit path. Select each icon to learn more. Give people space and ensure you have a route to safety. Don't get in their way. Don't get angry, stay calm, or ensure that you appear calm, and try not to take things personally. Remove yourself if you feel threatened or uncomfortable. Have an exit handover strategy. This is a prepared way of leaving a situation or handing over to another employee or manager that allows you to leave. When someone is being hostile towards you, it is easy to become defensive or confrontational ourselves. Open palms ensures you are giving non-aggressive signals to the other person. An open-handed gesture is a very powerful signal that you don't want to fight. Select each letter to learn more. Position. Try not to approach people head-on and ensure to always be polite and friendly. Be aware of your exits and route to safety. Also, ensure the other person can see a clear exit path. Remember fight or flight. If you block their exit, they are more likely to feel threatened by you and become emotional. Attitude. You may have a negative attitude about a person due to their behavior. It is important this does not show in your behavior or the way you treat them. Stay positive, professional, treat everyone fairly and with dignity and respect. Looking and listening. Use normal eye contact. It is important not to frown or have a fixed stare. Show you are actively listening, such as nodding your head to let the other person see that you are listening and trying to help them. Make space. Space is important when dealing with a person who is angry or aggressive. There are 3 basic spaces which will help you to choose the right distance to stay safe and consider. Stance. You can avoid squaring up by standing at an angle with one foot back and relaxing your shoulders. This also opens up a visual exit route for the other person. Make space. Select each image to learn more. Intimate space. This space is normally reserved for partners, family, or close friends, and you will generally be uncomfortable with anyone else at this distance. People may tolerate it with their dentists and doctors, and in elevators and crowded public transport, but only for short periods. If someone is trying to intimidate you, they may try to come close to you. Some individuals, however, may just be less socially aware. Normal space. Adopt this space if there is no threat in the situation. It is the distance you will adopt with any person in a normal situation and is just beyond an arm's length. Stranger space. Allow more space if you are dealing with a person who is angry or aggressive. You are a bit less vulnerable to being pushed or grabbed, and you give yourself and the other person space to exit. Diffusing, calming, and resolving strategies. It is much harder to resolve problems when someone is highly emotional, so you may need to use strategies to bring the person down from their emotional state, back into their rational state of mind. Approach this in 3 stages: defuse, calm, resolve. De-escalation. When a guest is unhappy, they often just want their concerns to be acknowledged and listened to by someone who is willing to help. The diffuse, calm, and resolve model can help de-escalate emotive situations. Select each button to learn more. Defuse. One of the first things you can do is acknowledge a person's concerns with a positive approach. This could be as simple as saying, "I can see you are unhappy. How can I help?" Calm. You may help calm a situation by listening closely to what someone is saying. It is important to show concern and check understanding. For example, "This must be very frustrating. Can I check I have understood?" And then summarizing back. Resolve. If things have calmed, you may be able to resolve the situation. This could be by providing the guest with what they need or offering alternative options. If you cannot do this, an explanation and/or an apology can often help. Alcohol-related question 1. Let us return to the scenario involving the couple who had been drinking heavily. You have asked a colleague to observe as you approach the couple. Select which 3 of the following approaches would be most appropriate to maintain safety. Incorrect. You did not select the correct responses. The correct responses are: approach but give them space and access to exits. Signal non-aggression, e.g. demonstrating open palms. Politely ask the couple, "Could I ask that you lower your voices, please?" Alcohol-related question 2. The man stops and steps towards you and responds in an unpleasant tone. This has got nothing to do with you. Which of the following adopts an assertive, non-aggressive response? Correct. That's the correct response. Responding to antisocial behavior. This group has been outside the restaurant for some time. They moved inside and have taken over 2 tables. Some are standing and they are using the restrooms a lot. They are using the internet for music videos, which they are playing loudly on their cell phones. Some have purchased a drink and a small amount of food. After 30 minutes, the group begins shouting and throwing food at each other. Responding to antisocial behavior. To ensure that this does not impact other guests, the brand, or escalate further, which of the following would be best? Select the best answer from the choices below. Correct. That's the correct response. Considerations for approach. Let's now consider the impact of this approach on individuals and this group of teenagers in general for diffusing, calming, and resolving the situation. Children and young people may have reduced ability to control their impulses, are natural risk takers, and often push boundaries. Your approach must focus on the behavior you wish to stop, rather than how you feel about the group. Select how to communicate. Avoid an authoritative parenting approach and try to use positives. The more respectful you are, the more likely it is they will respond respectfully. Win-win. Remember, it is the behavior that you should focus on. Your win is the unacceptable behavior stops. Their win is that they get to remain in the restaurant and/or don't lose face in front of their peers. Avoid triggers. Try not to single anyone out. This could create embarrassment, leading to defensive behavior. It is likely, particularly when in groups, that some in the group could have a positive influence. If you can connect with them and get them on your side, you can use this to your advantage by empowering them within the group. Module 6. Personal Safety and Post-Incident. Higher risk situations and crisis incidents. Responding to high-risk scenarios. Tone and body language are very important in managing conflict and emotional situations. You need to demonstrate body language that lets the other person know that you don't want to argue with them. You notice an altercation between two men who are standing in the collection area waiting for food. One man pushes the other, who nearly falls to the floor. Then both men lunge towards each other. Other guests attempt to keep them apart. This is a high-risk situation, as there is immediate danger to you or someone else being physically assaulted. Select which two of the following would be the most appropriate in maintaining personal safety. Incorrect. You did not select the correct responses. The correct responses are: call security and/or the police, advise guests to step away, and ensure employees and other team members move to a place of safety. There are signs that a situation may be escalating to the point where you might be subjected to a physical assault. High-risk signs to watch for include intense eye contact, abuse focused on you personally, increasingly vulgar or threatening language, your personal space being invaded, pointing leading to physical contact, square-on posture, weapons such as knives or firearms. These signs could mean that the situation is escalating to a point where you might be subjected to a physical assault. You should consider leaving the situation as soon as you can. Higher risk situations and crisis incidents. Exit strategies. People can often stay too long in a potentially dangerous situation because they can't see or think of a way to get out of it. An exit strategy is quite simply a prepared reason for leaving a situation, to go to a place of safety and seek assistance. You need to have a reason ready so that it comes to mind quickly. It needs to be something that will not make the situation worse. It may be something like, just give me a moment, I need to check with a colleague. Just give me a moment, I'll go and check. I'll just go and make a call to seek advice. Let me go get a bit of paper so I can take down some more details. Can you recognize the reactive steps from the list below that would enhance safety in conflict situations? Select all that apply from the list below. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. From the following list, select some of the signs that may indicate a situation is escalating. Select all that apply from the list below. Incorrect. You did not select the correct response. Emergency protocols and exit strategies. In the scenario involving the couple that had been drinking, you were able to de-escalate the situation safely. The majority of situations can be resolved through proactive and positive reactive measures. It is important to recognize that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, some people will not comply with your requests, and things can escalate. What would be the most appropriate step if the situation were to escalate and the couple refused to stop the behavior and continued to display threatening and disruptive behavior? Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. emergency protocols and exit strategies, responding to risk scenarios and disruptive behavior. In the situation involving the group of young people, you were able to make choices that prevented an escalation. If this was not the case and the behavior continued, what options would be open to you? Select all those that apply. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct responses. Higher risk. When dealing with higher risk conflict, it is of particular importance to ensure that safety remains the priority, and you use the core strategies we've been discussing today. Select each image to learn more. Manage. Manage the situation in a way that reduces risk. Law enforcement. Hand over to police agency or on-site law enforcement partner. Exit path. Maintain a clear exit path and avoid being blocked in. This gives you a clear route to safety if you need to leave. Exit strategy. Have an exit strategy that allows you to leave the situation. Post-event impact and responsibilities. Recording an incident. There are many good reasons for recording an incident in writing. Select each option to learn more. Risk areas. It helps to identify risk areas and to focus resources. Support. It helps ensure you get the support you need. Formal record. It provides a formal record of what happened and your description of events. Learning. It can help start the individual, team, and organizational learning process. Reporting. Your report should include background information, information you had, factors that influenced the situation, behaviors presented, what people did and said, risks present, remember, POPs. Response. What you did and why. Details of who else was present and or involved. What actions and support followed the incident. Post-event impact and responsibilities. Reporting and recording involves several elements and must consider everyone who is affected by the incident. It is important to consider the immediate need of individuals, including employees, guests, or bystanders. Select each individual to learn more. Immediate needs. Ensure that everyone involved is physically safe. Consider first aid needs and ensure individuals are attended to and accident reporting protocols are followed. Follow up with your employees' emotional needs, as some incidents can be quite traumatic. Ensure that you contact the individual or individuals identified by your owner-operator for further assistance in these situations and to discuss available resources for your employees. Cooperate with emergency medical services and law enforcement where needed. Follow-up. Report and record all incidents as required by the policy put in place by your employer at your restaurant and any other local reporting procedures. When debriefing an incident, avoid placing blame and focus only on the facts. Establish learning, e.g., what happened and why. What can your restaurant improve or do differently? Module 7. Active Shooter. Key messages. The goal of this section is to provide guidelines on how to respond in the unlikely event that you encounter a hostile person using firearms or other deadly weapons with the intent of committing bodily harm to others. Select each image to learn more. An incident involving a firearm is life-threatening, and attempts to defuse or calm an active shooter situation could put you and others in danger. The aim of this module is to raise awareness of these potentially life-threatening situations and to offer guidance on how to respond. The following guidelines may apply to everyone involved in restaurant operations, including all employees, temporary workers, independent contracts, and anyone else on restaurant property. If you have been subjected to a previous incident involving firearms and are affected by any of the content or have further questions or concerns, you should seek support by contacting your immediate supervisor for additional support and guidance, Be prepared. There are things you can do to prepare in response to an active shooter incident. Select each icon to learn more. Be aware of your environment and surroundings. Consider areas or rooms that would afford you protection from firearms, somewhere that you could barricade yourself if there were no alternatives. Know your nearest and quickest exit to safety. United States Department of Homeland Security. An active shooter is an individual actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area. In most cases, active shooters use firearms and there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Observing a potentially violent situation. Most active shooter situations are unpredictable, evolve quickly, and are over within minutes. If you observe a potential violent situation, if possible and safe to do so, you should contact the local authorities by dialing 911. You may be the first to notice that something unusual is happening or able to happen. Therefore, you should not assume someone has contacted law enforcement or alerted others. Analyze the situation. Quickly determine the most reasonable way to protect your own life. Remember that people are likely to follow the lead of someone who takes action during an active shooter situation. Active shooter guidelines. Your safety is the #1 priority in an active shooter incident. Remember, evacuate, shelter, protect. Select each icon to learn more. Evacuate. If there is an accessible escape path, attempt to evacuate the premises. Get far enough away that you cannot see the building and stay out of sight. If you can see the building, the attacker can see you. Drag the slider to learn more. Shelter. If evacuation is not possible, find a place to hide where the active shooter is less likely to find and/or get you. Your hiding place should ideally be out of the active shooter's view, i.e., an area with a closed and locked door. Provide protection if shots are fired. For example, hiding behind a door may mean you are out of sight, but may not offer protection. A solid wall would offer much better protection. Not trap you or restrict your options for movement. Drag the slider to learn more. Take steps to prevent an active shooter from entering your hiding place. Lock the door and/or blockade the door with heavy furniture. Turn off the lights. Silence your cell phone or electronic device. Turn off any source of noise, i.e., radio, television. Protect. As a last resort, and only when your life is in imminent danger, you could attempt to disrupt and/or incapacitate the active shooter. When the shooter is at close range and you cannot flee, your chance of survival is much greater if you try to incapacitate him, her, by drag the slider to learn more. When law enforcement arrives, law enforcement's purpose is to stop the active shooter as soon as possible. Officers will proceed directly to the area in which the last shots were heard. Select each image to learn more. Officers usually arrive in teams of 2 to 4. However, individual officers may take action before backup arrives. Officers may wear regular patrol uniforms or external bulletproof vests, Kevlar helmets, and other tactical equipment. Don't be alarmed. Officers may be armed with rifles. Officers usually arrive in teams of 2 to 4. However, individual officers may shout commands and may push individuals to the ground for their safety. Obey all law enforcement officials. When law enforcement arrives, remember that the police may not know the identity of the shooter. Take the following actions to ensure you are not mistaken for a threat. Put down any items. Keep hands visible at all times and follow all instructions. Avoid making quick movements toward officers or your fellow coworkers. Do not stop to ask officers for help or direction when evacuating. Just proceed in the direction from which officers are entering the premises. You may be handcuffed until the police can sort out the situation to determine who the shooter is and who else may be involved. Post-event. Once you have reached a safe location or an assembly point, you will likely be held in that area by law enforcement until the situation is under control and all the witnesses have been identified and questioned. Click the icon to learn more. Do not leave until law enforcement authorities have instructed you to do so. Injuries. The first officers to arrive to the scene will not stop to help the injured persons. Expect rescue teams comprised of additional officers and emergency medical personnel to follow the initial officers. These rescue teams will treat and remove any injured persons. They may also call upon able-bodied individuals to assist in removing the wounded from the premises. You look up over the counter and see a person firing a gun in the restaurant. Which would be the priority in responding to this? Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. You look up over the counter and see a person firing a gun in the restaurant. If you are unable to evacuate safely, what would be your next preferred option? Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. You look up over the counter and see a person firing a gun in the restaurant. Which of the following should be your last resort response if under immediate threat? Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. Local law enforcement arrive and begin to evacuate people from the building. Which of the following should you do? Select all that apply from the list below. Correct. That's right. You selected the correct response. View a summary of some key takeaway points from this course. Select each option to learn more. Don't rush. Don't rush into situations. Take a moment to consider the risks. Situations. Remember, each situation is different. If you don't feel safe, consider your options for getting help and ensuring safety. Rights. Everyone has the right to use your restaurant. Treat everyone with courtesy and respect, even if you need to address specific behaviors of concern. Prevent. Preventing workplace violence is everyone's responsibility. Incidents must always be reported and reviewed. Engagement. Positive guest engagement and acknowledgement is the best deterrent to workplace violence. And congratulations on completing another step in your learning journey. Please select Exit to exit this course.